she'll come and she's going to share some thoughts at this time.
Thank you guys for all coming. It's very special to me. Hunter wanted the funeral to be a celebration of life. So he always said he didn't want people to be sad. He wasn't just my son, he was my partner, my brother, my better half. He was born into this world, a wise, funny little old man. He was potty trained at 2 and reading by 3, and he was a cowboy. He was a cowboy for, God, so long, until he was 10. Cowboy hat, white button-down shirt, bolo, vest, right? Never stopped. It was crazy. He was the kind of kid that you'd go to the store and you couldn't find him because he was holding the door open for old people to come in. He was the kid at ShopRite that we didn't have any money when we started out, and some kid was complaining a couple of aisles over that they wanted a piece of candy and they were crying. And he went over to that kid in his cowboy hat and he poked him and he said, "Hey kid, you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need." He was responsible. We left for work one morning and it was like 6 in the morning and we got about half a mile down the block and he said, "Mom," I think he was 2.5 or 3. He said, "You left the electric blanket on." Okay. So knowing it was Hunter, I turned around and sure enough, the electric blanket was on. He knew how to dial 911 at 2.5, which he had to use a couple of times with his dad, which is sad. And he'd say, "Dad died last night." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, I said, "What did you do?" And he said, I watched TV with Jakey, and in the morning Dad came back alive. So I don't even imagine a 2-year-old what he would do all night long thinking his father was dead laying there. He skipped instead of walking, and it made me crazy. He had this love for reading. It was insatiable. I would put him to bed at night, and I'd tuck him in, and he'd come marching down those stairs like clockwork 40 minutes later, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I read 80 more pages in my book." And then he'd go to the bathroom, and I'd go to bed. He loved carnivals, as long as he didn't have to go on the Ferris wheel. He loved the bouncy houses, and Diane, where are you? Do you remember when we took the kids to that indoor place with the ball pit and all that stuff? And I said, "Hunter," it was the Ira's kid. And I said, "Hunter, you have to take your shoes off so you can play." And he said, "No, thank you." And you remember? You were like, "He's really not going to stay here and play. I mean, this is like a paradise for kids." We went home so he wouldn't take his shoes off. He loved his facials. He loved his fun socks and his ice cream, cookies. He loved museums. We took him to the Museum of Natural History, and then he got to the part where it was the cavemen, and then the naked cavemen, and he just stood. He loved his botanical gardens. When he just got out of the rehab recently, and we got him into the halfway house, he said, "Can we go to the botanical gardens?" And we did. He loved the ocean. He loved pets of all kind. And we had them all, including the skunk and the rat. He was a great cook, loved cooking, and he loved skateboarding, were his things. His only dislikes were cotton balls that gave him the chills. He couldn't touch a cotton ball, and nail files. I couldn't even sit in the garage and take a nail file out because he'd get freaked out. We had a very special way of reading each other's minds. It's a miracle he survived with me. These are just a couple of funny stories. When he was a baby, I had him in the car seat, and I must have been at the doctor's office, and I unlatched it from between his legs, and they called me in, and I stood up, and I had the car seat, and the car seat flipped forward, and he was hanging, and some old ladies next to me were going, "Ma'am, your baby." So there was another time we were at Macy's in the mall, and I didn't have him strapped in, and his head was big, so he must have leaned over, and I was around a rounder of dresses. Well, he fell out of the stroller and rolled underneath, and I came back to the stroller, and I was like, "Where is he?" And he was underneath the dresses. I looked around, but there must be surveillance cameras here somewhere. Put him in the city, and we got out of the store. We went to a petting zoo one time, and I said, "Look how cute this sheep is. You could put your finger in the sheep's mouth. It sucks on your finger." Well, he sucked his finger in. I didn't know they had big teeth in the back, and it chomped down on his finger, and he almost lost his finger. time, there was a bee that I had killed, and I thought it was dead. And he said, "Can I see it?" And I put it in his hand, and it stung him. And the best one was Something About Mary came out, that movie, about the man zipping his penis in his pants. And Hunter had onesie pajamas on with the feet, and he came out of the bathroom, and he was like, "Ah!" And I said, "What is wrong with you?" And I looked down, and I go, "Where's your underwear?" And he said, "I was free balling it." I started laughing, and he said, "This is not funny." So I was like, "Okay, take a deep breath." I was still laughing, and I unzipped him, and he was like, "Oh, I'm never gonna pee again." He never went without underwear with those pajamas again. Oh, it was so funny. Hunter was always the person to give, and give. He worked at McAdoo's when he was at the halfway house in the last 2 years, and some girl at work didn't have her glasses. She lost them. He gave her glasses, his glasses to her so she could drive home. I think he had told me a story about a shooting in Charlotte recently. I think he was with Natalie, and they heard gunshots, and he heard screaming. He ran to his car, and he got his first aid kit, and he ran over to the girl that was shot in the car and held her neck until she passed. There was recently in the cold weather, there was a man driving down the road up in Charlotte with a truckload full of wood. The truckload of wood was in the street, and he turned around in his car, and he went to help the man load all that wood up. And he said, "What are you building, a pergola or a deck?" And the guy said, "Oh, you have experience in this?" And he said, "Yes," because he worked with his stepdad, Anthony. And the guy said, "Well, how much do you like your car?" And he said, "Why?" He said, "Because you should get a pickup truck and come work for me." But Hunter knew that his health wasn't good enough to be able to do that kind of work anymore. So he turned the guy down, but he helped him unload everything. He loved dressing up as a girl for Halloween. And man, he looked good. The fishnet stockings, the bra, the whole thing. And Karen knows because we showed up at Karen's house, and Corey, his best friend, and Tony was on the patio, and he got out of the car, and he's strutting his stuff, and Corey, his best friend, didn't even know it was him. I think we were checking him out.
Just about done.
You guys died when you realized it was Hunter.
I was
Crying. Oh, so funny. Just the best. So we lost 10 years of Hunter. We got him back the last 2 years, and I have cherished every kiss, every hug, and there was lots of them. The last time I saw him, he answered the door in a towel, as usual, and he said, "Go have lunch. I'll go get a coffee, and I'll be down." He paid for my lunch that day, and I dropped my card, and he put his foot on my card, and I wrestled him the best I could in that pizza place to get that, and there was no budging him. So he paid for it, and he said, "We're getting 2 cannolis, Mom, to celebrate me getting my new car," because he loved his cannolis. I saw him a time before that, it was about a month ago, and out of nowhere, we came at a Target. He took my hand, and he said, "Come on, Mom, let's skip." We skipped through the parking lot all the way to the car. I felt so silly, but he was not going to stop. It didn't matter. And the arm punches that he used to give me every time he saw a PT Cruiser, which really pissed me off. He still thought it was funny. He said he did it to Natalie, too. I couldn't figure out what the spoon in his coffee always meant. And Natalie told me, and she said that's to get the pieces of cookies out of the bottom of his coffee cup every morning after he finishes his coffee. Hunter now gets to spend the rest of his days with his dad, his Uncle Sam, and Mr. Battaglia, and countless friends that he has lost in the last years. So that's all I have to say. If anybody wants to come up and tell a funny story, I would really like that.
I can't go up.
Anyone like to come share at this time?
Nobody can outdo that.
No. I have to say, that's a tough act to follow. And she, my daughter, I'm very proud of you, Denise. You did a fabulous, fabulous job.
This is for Hunter.
Of course.